Welcome to Italian Roots and Genealogy, where history lives in our blood. We explore the journeys, records, and family stories that connect Italy to the world, because when you discover your roots, you don't just find names, you find yourself. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, our blog, and our Facebook group, Italian Roots and Genealogy, and check out our great sponsors, My Bella Vita and Phil Italy, if you want to plan a trip to Italy. And I'm thrilled to have as a guest today, Juliana Greco, for a couple of reasons. Because she's just came back from an NIAF trip to Italy, and she's young. So I love having young people on. So welcome, Juliana. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. And this is my podcast debut, so I'm happy to be here.
Oh, super. Fantastic. So, I want to talk about the trip, but before we do, just, tell us a little bit about your Italian background.
Sure. So I'm Italian on my dad's side of the family. My grandparents both immigrated here to the United States from Napoli, specifically a small little town called Cimitile, Italy. And growing up, it was always something that was just an everyday occurrence, being Italian American. Like it showed up in the food, the culture, the music, the family. And yeah, ever since a young age, it's just been something really important to me and ingrained in my life.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, both my parents were Italian on both sides of their family. So, I grew up hearing Italian constantly at my grandmother's house. And in fact, my father would always speak to his mother in Italian. Um,
Mm.
so, what really interests me in talking to you is the NIAF trip. And, what was the process in applying for that?
Yeah, let's see. I think it was in March when I applied, and maybe that's when I found out. But basically, my grandpa and my uncle, they're at the IATO, the club that you're also a part of, and they saw this thing, which is that some of the college students of family members in IATO could be sent to this trip, and so they forwarded me this link, and I applied. I think it was maybe a couple essays, resume, my college transcript, and a video of why I wanted to go to Italy. And so I sent that in, not really expecting much, just because it's a countrywide thing. So I was just like, oh, I might as well. Why not? And I love Italy. I'd only been once before, exactly a year ago prior. And so it was like still fresh in my mind. I really wanted to go. And and it got accepted, and it was quite a shock, but, I told my family, and they were like, "Are you kidding? You have to go." Because I was like, "Should I go?" And they were like, "Is that even a question?" But, yeah, I'm very fortunate to have been accepted.
That's fantastic. So, where did you go? What cities did you go to?
Yeah, so it was broken up into 2 different spots. First of all, every, trip with the NIAF, the Voyage of Discovery, that's what it's called, you start in Rome, which is wonderful. Rome is, I think it might be my favorite city in the world. Uh, so we explored there for I think 3 days-ish, got to see, the Vatican, the Pantheon, all the big spots, Trevi Fountain, and then we went to the Region of Honor, which this year it was Lombardy, so we went to Milan and stayed there for the remainder of the trip, and that was beautiful. Like, we took different day trips around the northern parts of Italy and really got to explore Milan itself, and it was so beautiful. I'd never been to the north.
Yeah, we hadn't been to the north either until this last trip, because my wife kept telling me, "Enough of the ancestry in the south. We've seen enough of your family places. I want to see some in the north." Um, and yeah, Milan was really, really a cool place. I had been there once, I don't know, 30 years ago when I was
Mhm.
working, but I really didn't really get to see that much of it. I think at that time the only thing I remember was walking past La Scala and it's like, "Oh, that's the
Okay,
opera
yeah.
house." That's the opera house. Um, so how many students in the trip?
I believe it was 24, 20, maybe 25, including myself. So, it was relatively small. We got to know each other really well, really fast. And honestly, like all of them, probably lifelong friends in some way or another. We still reach out all the time over, social media, texting, all that. And I'm sure we'll see each other again. there's actually this like reunion thing in Florida. I think it's maybe this upcoming year for the NIAF, and we might go fly out there. It's for, 20 something year olds.
Oh, nice. Oh,
Yeah.
that's really nice. So you mentioned regional. So did they do it like always start in Rome and then every year go to a different place? Is that how they work it?
At least the past few years. So then the region of honor, it changes every year. I forget where it was last year, but there's Campania, all sorts of different places.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Rome as your favorite city. Not
Yes.
my wife's favorite city, but I love Naples because
Uh,
that's where I'm from. So
mhm.
my father's family's from Naples and my mother's family was from Torito and Bari, which completely different places, different atmosphere for sure. Um, but my father's mother and father, both they lived in the city. So the
Yeah.
first time you went, where did you go? Did you go to like where the family was from?
So I was in Rome actually the whole time. It was 2 weeks for a study abroad program with Seton Hall University, my school. And yeah, we stayed there in Prati, it's like a little district. But I was able to do some day trips. So I went to Florence and I actually met up with my grandfather who was in his home in Cimitile. So I went to Napoli and it was beautiful. It was too quick, so I didn't get a really good feel, but I was very happy to just like walk the streets of my grandparents and see what their life was like.
Yeah. So how did that feel? I mean, I know how I feel when I'm there, but do you feel like you're home?
In a way, yes, but it also feels like it's I more so resonated with the fact of they were in a small little town, and I got that sense it was beautiful, and then they come into New York City and the shock they must have felt, and that's sort of what I kept thinking about because it was hard for me to picture myself in a farm with no technology back then, but seeing like the drastic difference even today, it makes me have a new respect for what they went through when they immigrated.
Yeah, I think we all have that kind of feeling.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of guys in the club. One person I'm pretty friendly with too, Dr. Nick. He was born in Avellino, and he said it was like a real culture shock, coming
Yeah,
from that small town, and coming to America, and then eventually becoming a doctor, which is phenomenal.
yeah.
So when you were in Milan, you said you took a lot of day trips. Where did you go? What towns or cities did you go to?
Yeah, so it's hard to keep track because it was like super fast, one day, next day. But we went to Genoa, which was beautiful. Got to see the port city. It was really cool. And then we went to Cremona, which might have been one of my favorites. We got to see this violin making, and just the town just felt so beautiful. Like I would love to just retire there, to be honest. And then we went to Lago di Garda, which was really beautiful. It's like Lake Como, but smaller. And that was definitely the most beautiful sight.
Um, yeah, I would have liked that. We didn't get to Cremona. We didn't get to Genoa. We did get up to Lake Como, and we stayed in a town called Bolano, which is across the lake from Lake Como. And yeah, it's really cool up there. You know, what was nice about Bolano, it wasn't touristy like Lake Como, uh,
Yeah.
and a lot cheaper, I'm sure. Um, 'Cause, Lake Como is like Milan. Milan is like New York.
Yes.
Everything's, uh, um, what is a spritz in Milan by the Duomo is like 15 euros, and then if you're sitting someplace in the South, it's like 5,
Yep. You gotta know where to look. Otherwise, you're gonna get scammed.
We absolutely love Florence. I mean, I really enjoyed
Mhm.
it there, and we went to a couple places which didn't have a lot of tourists, like Ferrara and Modena. Um,
Okay.
which is really cool when you go to those places because nobody's speaking English. Um, very few people, if you go into a shop or something like that, there'll be some people speaking English, but for the most part, everybody's speaking Italian, and there's not the hustle and bustle of some of the other places. We went to Venice and on this last trip, and it was just wall to wall tourists. I mean, it was just packed.
Really?
Yeah. So it's nice when you get to some of those out of the way places. Um,
Yeah. How
so
was your Italian, by the way?
We have a at the club. We have lessons on Saturday morning.
Oh, nice.
I pick up a little bit, but we when we get to Naples next month, I'm going to have Dr. Nick with me, who speaks not only Italian, he speaks Neapolitan. And I said,
Oh,
I'm,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to drag you around Naples to some of the ancestral place homes or churches that I hadn't been before because I
Uh-huh.
didn't know or they were closed. I said, we're going to knock on doors and you're going to ask the Neapolitans to let me.
Yeah. Hey, it's good to have him around though, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. Um, so I always ask everybody whether it's here or there, but since you've
Mhm.
been there, uh, how was the food?
Oh, I mean, it's incredible. You can't even compare it to Italian American food. I mean, it honestly makes me rethink just entirely how we do food here in America, because everything is farm to table. It's fresh, no preservatives. I mean, and I ate some of the things that I grew up eating here with my grandparents, and it was just incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
it was so cool.
I'm not a big fish eater, but there were a couple of places
No.
where we went, and I made specific requests on this trip that we're going to now to go to Sheila in Calabria, and if you ever go back and get a chance to go to Sheila,
Mhm.
it's right on the coast of Calabria and it's beautiful. But there's one place that I said, we have to stop here, at least for lunch, if nothing else. They make a swordfish sandwich, and all it is uh, swordfish, olive oil, and lemon.
Wow.
And it is phenomenal. I mean, because that the fish came out of the water probably 2 or 3 hours before.
Mhm. Yep.
A lot of people think my daughter, for example, thought she was going to have the best fettuccine alfredo she ever had in Italy, and we got there, and she said I said it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's true. It's an
No.
Americanizing thing, but
Yeah, yeah, but like you said, everything is just super fresh and all of that. Um,
mhm.
I just if I knew what I know now, I like you mentioned you'd like to live there or retire there or something like that. If I knew what
Mhm.
I knew now, I would have had a place in Italy. I had no
Mhm.
idea that my father's first cousins were still alive and
Oh, wow.
living just outside of Naples, and that my grandmother had been in touch with them when she left, and my aunt, my father's oldest sister, had been in touch with them, uh, and um, I just uh, maybe I'm weird, maybe I'm not, I don't know, but I just have this connection to that, and I can't explain it, you know?
Mm, yeah. When did you start researching your family tree and all that?
Probably now, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago or something like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and I always liked history. So,
Mhm.
that was part of the fascination. Well, I like history, so I should probably know the history of my family if I could find it out. Uh, and I sent you the photo of me in the St. Peter's.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how did you figure that out? I was gonna ask you. That's quite
Well,
incredible.
back in the old days, we always had photo albums with these black pages. I don't know if you ever saw one of those, but
Yeah. Mhm.
uh, and one of the things in there was my great grandfather's, what I refer to as a calling card, and it said had his name and this family crest, and it said "De Duchi di Capricotta," which meant from the Dukes of Capricotta. And my mother would always say that was my father's grandfather, and that he was a count or a duke or something like that.
Mhm.
So that's where I started. And the very first thing that when I Googled it, uh, his name came up, and it was a page from the Libro d'Oro, which is the book of Italian nobility in the South,
Mhm.
and it showed him marrying Emilia Caracciolo in 1982, and I was pretty sure it was my great grandfather, but I had never heard that Emilia Caracciolo, but the name fit because my oldest aunt was Amelia, or Emily, we called her, and
Mhm.
the dates were all right and everything like that. So I called my cousin who lived with my grandmother, And she said, "Oh, yes, of course, that was Nanny's mother." And I said, "Do you know how famous these people were? Do you have any idea who these people were?" And she said that my grandmother used to say that her cousin was a princess, but she was a crazy old lady. But her cousin was a princess because her great-grandfather was a prince.
Yeah.
And so that led me down this path of just being able to find all of these, counts and dukes and princes in Italy, which then led
Mhm.
where they married, Spanish nobility and all of that. And, yeah, so Alessandro Farnese, Pope Paul III is my great-grandfather. Popes back then were a little bit more, how would I say?
Relaxed, I
Yeah,
guess.
I guess, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way of
I was
putting
gonna
it.
say, that seems like a bit of an issue that the Pope is in your lineage.
Uh, um, I don't know if you saw the series The Borgias, um, but
No, I haven't.
yeah, it's really an excellent series, um, to watch because it's basically the history of the Borgia Pope, Pope Alexander the Fourth. He was a very, very extremely corrupt man,
Mm.
um, and his main squeeze was Giulia Farnese. Her brother was Alessandro. He was made a cardinal when he was 18 years old. He had, uh, at some point during his career, he had a girlfriend and had a couple of kids. It's a really interesting series because they really go into, um, the whole aspects of the Papal States versus the Kingdom of Naples and all of that kind of stuff. So if you like history and you like that kind of stuff. We know a lot about the French nobility and the English nobility, and Italy has a really, really rich culture, going
Yeah.
back thousands of years and, how the nobility rose and all of that kind of stuff, and then what happened with reunification. Um,
Mhm.
so it is pretty interesting, and,
Yeah.
on the opposite end of the spectrum, my mother's family were farmers from Bari, uh, and, had they been in Italy, they were at such a different social spectrum, they never would
Yeah.
have crossed paths besides the fact that they came from different places. But I think that's what's cool about America. And, we were talking about the food earlier, and what I learned in doing some research about food, they couldn't get the exact same ingredients in America that they had in Italy. So they
Mhm.
made do with the best they could. But another important part of the story is the regional foods that you see in Italy, all over different in Italy,
Yeah.
because somebody from, let's say, Sicily would marry somebody from Naples, in America, they kinda started merging, the different foods.
Yeah.
So that's how we got, certain dishes, like spaghetti and meatballs, and I guess things were a little bit more prevalent here, so it was interesting in that respect. Um,
Mhm.
the what advice would you have for young people that either wanna find their family or thought about maybe going a trip to Italy, but then say, "Oh, well, I'm not interested because my family is so far removed," or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say if your concern is because you're so far removed, then I would say just open your mind a little bit. Like even some of the people I was with on the trip, they were maybe an eighth Italian or something, a small percentage, but when they went, they still had just as transformative as of an experience as, somebody who's one generation removed. And I would say if you're interested and you don't have the means to, then try and look for avenues like the NIAF or things like that because they really make an effort to try and make Italy an experience that any Italian American can achieve, which I think is really wonderful because, a lot of people would love to go to Italy, but it's expensive. Plane tickets, where to stay, food, and this trip just makes it a possibility for college students who, don't really have the most money at the moment, but are still interested in experiencing their history.
Yeah, and I think it's great also that you have the opportunity to go for a couple of weeks. I don't know, second or third cousins just recently was able to do something like that. So much to see there.
Mhm.
And every place you go is kind of different, which makes it a
Yeah.
very, very unique country because of the isolation up until my parents' lifetime and
Mm.
your grandfather's lifetime. Uh, People didn't go more than 10 miles from their village in some cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, did you do any, like, deep research into your Italian family, or you just know the last couple of generations?
Well, deep research, no. I know, my grandparents from Italy and their parents a little bit, but I've noticed just from speaking with my grandparents that, after a certain period of time, they don't know personally their ancestors. I think because of technology and maybe isolation is a factor. But out of curiosity, I did the ancestry.com or something like that.
Yeah.
And I got like the broad span. I saw that obviously I'm Italian, but then past that, I think my, very far back ancestors came from Greece and Northern Africa. And it makes a lot of sense. And like Turkey, that area,
Mhm.
because, it's all connected. You have the water there. And yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, and that's not unusual.
Mhm.
Because of my father's roots, I have some French and some German and a little bit dabs of, different places like that. My mother's
Mhm.
family, uh, was basically, as far as I know, all Italian. But what's interesting, um, you could take your Ancestry GEDCOM file, and I think it's still free. Um,
Oh,
I tried Living DNA, which is based in Europe, thinking that, um more Italians would do DNA te Italians don't do DNA tests. You could take it and you put it into this, living DNA, and I think you could do it for free. That does, goes back a little bit further, but it also gives you your mother line and father line. Now, of course, you would only have a mother line, but my mother line, much to my surprise, was like 96% from the Caucasus, which I
okay. Yeah.
which I found amazing. You don't really know how far back it goes when they got to Italy, but
Mhm.
that's where her mother line came from. There's another site that I also think you could start for free called My True Ancestry. What's
Okay.
interesting about them is they go to archaeological digs around the world, and they get DNA samples from there, and they compare it to your sample. We're going back 100,000 years in some cases, so it's not a true picture of, um, exactly where you came from, but what it can tell you is your DNA matches, uh, let's say, an archaeological dig in Greece or Roman, uh, um, let's say, something from Pompeii or something like that. So it's pretty interesting in that respect, that it can match you back to places that you wouldn't think you necessarily would match back to. Um,
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, Rome and Greece and some of those places. But yeah, I mean, it's not unusual to be Southern Italian and have Greek, Northern Africa, uh, places like the Levant. That's not strange. Um, a lot of people are suspect about the DNA.
Mm.
Uh, but, my wife's is obviously completely different than mine. My kids are both adopted, and theirs are different from each other and different from us. Um, so yeah, I mean, the only thing that I find that I don't like about it is as they change the algorithm or as they find new stuff, then your percentages has changed. A lot of people think it's not accurate because of that, but it's only because they're getting more and more information and more people doing it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I always say that the Italians, they don't have to do DNA because if they're in and around where their family's been for 500 years, they could probably just go to the cemetery and
Yeah.
see
Exactly.
who's there and,
Uh-huh.
go from there. What's really sad when you go to the small towns is that so many people have left. I didn't realize that your grandparents came from, um,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if I met him at the club yet. I don't.
Oh, really? I thought he said that you guys are friends.
Oh,
No?
maybe it's possible. So yeah, so he'll have to come and grab me at the next
Yeah.
meeting, and I'll convince him to be on the show. Maybe he could help me with my Italian, which
He
would,
speaks Neapolitan though. Like he does speak regular Italian, but he normally speaks Neapolitan.
I always thought growing up that when my mother was speaking to her mother and my father was speaking that they were speaking Italian, but they weren't. They were speaking dialect. My mother was
Mm.
speaking Barese and my father was speaking Neapolitan to his
To
mother.
each other?
Well, they would fight with each other who was speaking the correct Italian.
Okay, I was gonna say, how are they coming to an agreement
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, they would fight with each other that they weren't saying it right. But I always thought they were both speaking Italian because I had no idea. Uh, and, I know with the Barres, which I heard most often, um, they would chop everything off, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
and my uncle, we called him Uncle John, Uncle Giovanni, who he didn't come to America until 1950 with his family. He stayed behind when my grandparents came. Uh, my mother would call him Juan. They never said
Mm.
Giovanni. Her uncle Dominic was Zimanguch. That was
Yeah, it
Uncle Dom.
sounds like Neapolitan dialect. Yeah.
It's Barney and Naples isn't that far apart.
Hmm.
But um, so before we go, just one little last piece of advice for uh young people, whether they're Italian or not, should they be interested in their background?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. If not for your own personal curiosity, just if you're a history buff, you could just explore the region, understand, why people came to certain places, why certain places had certain people. I just think it's super interesting to understand the world. And that's why I'd encourage people, I guess. And Italy itself, I mean, it's hard to find so many places in the world that are that rich in history. I mean, obviously there are, you have China, for example, but Italy is very special in my opinion, especially because it's where my family's from.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Well, thank you again. I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a lot of fun, and
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for having me again. It was great talking with you.